Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, then when there comes the second blowing, that day shall a man flee from his brother. You're going to run away from your brother, and from his mother, and from his father, and from his wife, and his children. Every man that day will have enough to make him careless of others. You would run away from your brother. You would run away from your father and mother. You would run away from your wife and your children because you're busy with your own affair. A fourth sign of the danger of that day is the willingness of the non-believer to sacrifice anything for the sake of freeing himself from that punishment. They are willing to do anything. This kafir who would refuse to even spend $1 or give one word in the sake of Allah, on that day is willing to give anything. He's willing to give the world and everything in it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and if every person who had wronged himself possessed all that is on the earth, he would seek to ransom himself therewith. Imagine you own the whole earth, you're willing to pay it to free yourself from hellfire. Not only are they willing to free themselves with the earth, they are even willing to free themselves with double everything in the earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, but those who answered not His call, if they had all that is in the earth together with it, with its like, they would offer it in order to save themselves. 2 times everything in the earth, they would pay it to free themselves from the punishment of hellfire. They're even willing to pay more. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, verily, those who disbelieved and died while they were disbelievers, the whole earth full of gold will not be accepted from them even if they offered it as ransom. If they had the whole earth in gold. I mean, imagine if you have a piece of gold like this, we would not be willing to pay it in sadaqah. On the Day of Judgment, when they see the reality, see, that's the problem. We are not aware of the reality. We're living in a dream. As one of the Salaf said, people are sleeping and they wake up when they die. We are in a state of sleep. Even though our eyes are wide open, but we are sleeping. We are unaware. We are holding back on a lot. We are holding back on nafaqah. We are holding back on good deeds. We are holding back on hasanat. On the Day of Judgment, when the non-believer sees the reality of the situation, he is willing to ransom himself with the whole world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not asking you for that. And that's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says in the hadith narrated by Al-Bukhari, the non-believer will be brought forth and he will be asked, if you had the equivalent of the earth in gold, are you willing to pay it to free yourself from hellfire? The non-believer will say yes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell him, I asked you for much less than that. In dunya, I asked you to say La ilaha illallah. I asked you to pray, I asked you to fast, I asked you to make dhikr and dua, give sadaqah, take care of the Muslim ummah. That's all what I asked you for. I did not ask you to pay the whole world in gold. But it's too late then. We procrastinate. And that is, if you read Quran, you would find that most of the screaming and the yelling and the crying of the people of hellfire is due to procrastination. The non-believer is not only willing to sacrifice material gain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the criminal would desire to ransom himself from the punishment of that day by his children, and by his wife and his brother, and by his clan who sheltered him, and all that are in the earth, so that it might save him. Allah, we read these ayat and we're not affected by them. Think about it this way. Think about your own children. Imagine your own children, you bring them all together and you throw them in fire, burning fire. Imagine you have a building that is burning now, blazing flames. And you take all of your children and you throw them in that fire and you watch them burning in front of your eyes. You would be willing to do that on the Day of Judgment. We would be willing to throw our own children in fire, and our brothers, and our parents, and everything that we have, and our whole clan. We would be willing to give the whole world in gold to free ourselves from hellfire. That is due to one scene of hellfire. By just seeing hellfire for one moment, it would completely change the state of our minds. We're willing to pay anything and everything to free ourselves from it.